Welcome, everyone. Hello, everybody. We're going to give people 2 more minutes to log in, to get through the login process. And while we're doing that, while we're waiting for other folks to log in, I would just absolutely love it if you could find the chat and tell us in the chat your name, your school. I'm at LA Pierce College. And your role. So I'm the Center for Academic Success Director. So put your name, your college, and your role in the chat while we're waiting for other folks to log in. So we can kind of get a sense of what kind of diversity of awesomeness we have in the room together today. You know, COVID sucks in so many ways, but like there's like 2 things that are good about it. And one of them is that we get to have these wonderful conversations with people all across the West Coast and beyond. So we'd love to see who's in the room. All right, let's see. We've got Mara from Pierce. And we got Jeffrey. Hey, Jeffrey, from Portland. And then Michelle from Cal State Northridge. Giselle from Pasadena. Ken from Miramar. Hey, Ken. The Well. I like that. All right, we got Ingrid from Sierra. Writing Center Instructional Assistant. Ruth, and Learning Assistant Specialist. So really wonderful, wonderful diversity of folks in the room. Oh, good. Oh, good. Molly, welcome. That's awesome. More folks from Portland, Humboldt. I love it. Pasadena, West LA. Hi, Pia. Very cool. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Wendy from Antelope Valley. Yeah, so come on in. Just tell us what your name is, what your college is, and what your role is, so we can all kind of start to get to know one another. We're going to get to know each other more as our hour progresses, but it's never too late to start. So welcome aboard, everyone. That chat is there, so feel free to give each other love in the chat at any time. Say hello to each other, greet each other, ask your questions. That's what it's there for. So my name is Crystal. I'm the Tutoring Center Director at Los Angeles Pierce College. And I'm also a coordinator for the California Community Colleges Success Network, which sponsors this amazing event, 3CSN. And on behalf of all of 3CSN and this amazing team, we welcome you. As you're introducing yourself in the chat, putting in your name, your college, your role, I'm just going to introduce our panel of amazing innovators today. So although 3CSN sponsors this, and I'm kind of master of ceremonying it, I'll be doing a lot of the instructions. This was very much co-developed and co-conceived by writing specialists and writing support professionals from across the state. So we have Mara Kramer, who's an English professor and writing center coordinator and English tutoring coordinator at Pierce College. We've got Ruth, who's from Pacific Oaks College, learning assistant specialist, a small private institution. So what's up, Ruth? We also have Giselle from Pasadena City College, writing center support faculty, and Chase, who's learning center director at Los Angeles West College. Or West Los Angeles College, rather. And Chris, unfortunately, won't be able to join us today, but standing in for Chris is Michelle, who is a Master's of Social Work intern at Cal State Northridge. So we got people from all over the place doing this amazing work. So welcome, everyone, and thank you all for putting in all of your extra time, because I know it's a busy time of year. We're going to be working for the next hour to just kind of identify some common strengths, hopes, and activities, the stuff that we're doing all across the state to support writing. We're also going to connect with some folks, so meet somebody from other colleges and see what they're doing that's working. And we're going to also identify maybe some common questions or areas for us to explore in the future. Hopefully this isn't the last opportunity we'll have to get to know one another. So again, this roundtable is scheduled for an hour, but that'll really just be sort of like the small group discussion portion. If you would like to stick around, most of us will be here until 6:30, so we can have a whole group debrief of the small group discussions that we had. So it's up to you. Like that'll be your trolley stop. If you want to leave at 6, that's fine. I understand you probably have dinner cooking. If you want to hang out for an extra half an hour, we would love to have you. The way it's going to work is everybody's going to start muted, but you won't end up muted because it's a roundtable, right? So get ready to participate. If you want to participate, you can type your question, comments, or kudos in the chat. Feel free to use that chat as freely as you like. Mara is actually going to be monitoring that chat and putting stuff in the chat as you need it. You can raise your Zoom hand, which I'll show you how to do in a second. But if you can't figure that out and you want to speak, you can put a 1 in the chat, and then Mara will flag you down and we'll unmute you, or we'll ask you to unmute yourself. So all of this goodness happens in that toolbar at the bottom. So you want to find that little chat button if you haven't already. Click on that and tell us your name, college, and role. To raise your hand, it's 2 buttons. You first click the participants button in that bottom toolbar, and then there's like a little blue hand that comes up. If you want to practice raising your hand right now, I won't call on you, but if you just want to see if it works. But after this, if your little blue hand goes up, we'll call on you and then you can speak. But again, if you can't figure out that little blue hand, just put a 1 in the chat and we'll ask you to unmute yourself. And of course, to unmute yourself, you're just going to find the picture of that little old-timey microphone at the bottom and click it to unmute it and click it again to mute it. Okay. So just so we can kind of get our arms around how we're going to work together today so we can work best together today, we always like to start with a couple of community agreements or norms for us, what you could expect and how we hope to work together today. First of all, just be ready to participate actively. You're going to be put in some breakout rooms and you're going to discuss some questions. So it's not going to be lecture based. It's very much going to be a collaboration. You're going to be adding to a collaborative document and sharing ideas with each other. We ask you to be present. If you're the sort of person who is in 2 different Zoom calls and you're also cooking dinner and tending to your children and checking your emails, bless you. We love you and we've all been there. No, I'm definitely not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's probably not going to work for today because it is a small group discussion. So if you need to step away, you can just email me or put a message in the chat so I don't put you in a breakout room because we don't want to leave those breakout rooms with 1 person alone. So just let me know if you need to step away. Be ready to share your successes and your solutions and to talk about how to address the barriers and the questions that we come with. And just remember to be kind. It is just a scary, weird world out there. So learning starts with safety. Safety starts with kindness. So let's just be supportive of others as they ask their questions and share their observations. All right, go ahead, Pia.
Yes, I don't see what you're talking about where you raise your hand. That's all. Not that I ever need it, but.
Yeah, you can just put a 1 in the chat for now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, for some people it works, for some people it doesn't.
Yeah.
Rule number 1 is always have a plan B, right? So I get you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with a quick warm up. So we're going to talk about what's working. So we have been online now for like 8 months. And there have been tons of challenges, but I actually would argue that we're navigating through this quite admirably well. Thank you very much. So we just want to start with brainstorming kind of what is one thing that you've been doing in the last 9 months to support writing, 8 or 9 months to support writing that's worked well. And then we're also sure that you have a ton of questions. So maybe take a couple of minutes to kind of gather some of the questions that you have that you might want somebody's input on. So I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes and we're just going to have 2 minutes of silence to think, write, or type. And then after that, I'll ask you to share it with us. But for now, just think, right? So any questions on that? All right, great. Setting my timer for 2 minutes and just let us know, raise your hand or put a 1 in the chat if you have any questions. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you. I already see some folks are sharing their questions in the chat. We love that. That is wonderful. Okay, so just go ahead and stop writing there wherever you're at. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do actually what Brian has already modeled for us, and that is we're going to share our answers with other folks. So what Mara is going to do is she's going to put a link to a different document in the chat. So if you would be so kind, when you see that, click on the link in that chat, and that'll take you to a collaborative document that we're going to use together. It looks like this right here. When you're there, you're going to go to slide number 2, and then I'll show you how to do this, right? So you're going to click on every other bullet so you don't write over somebody else, and then type in one success that you've had. You're going to type that in on the left side of the slide, And a question that you have, you're going to put it on the right side. So I'll show you that now. There we go. So here's slide number 2. And you can see people are already in it to win it. So you've got all these wonderful anteaters and armadillos typing away. Don't worry about going below what do you call this thing? A slide. Just keep typing. Questions on one side and then successes on the other. And I'm going to set my alarm for another 2 minutes. And we're just going to give you a minute to start filling that in as we go. Just make sure you're not erasing somebody else's. Just make sure that you're just adding and not subtracting. So if you have any questions, do let us know. If not, just kind of dig in. All right. All right, thank you. And as you can see, lots of good stuff. Go ahead and keep adding. You don't have to stop. I'm seeing a lot of love for Zoom. That seems to have been working out for folks pretty well. And a lot of great collaborations, training, a lot of that seems to be working really well. Awesome. We want to hear in those breakout rooms what's going well for sure. So please do share those successes with others. And then over in the questions, we're seeing a lot of the same questions as we did last time. This is actually our second round of this. You know, how to increase student participation, how to do paper drop off, marketing. Oh my goodness, I love this. How to achieve the work-home balance since you're literally at home and at work all the time. Great questions, wonderful. Keep them coming. We'll clean up this slide so you can take this with you later if you kind of want to see other people's questions and comments. So do continue to add to this as we go. All right, so thank you for that. Okay, now that our brains are a little bit warmed up, we're going to move into our next phase where we determined 3 pre-established questions. So this is our second round of a roundtable. After the first round of the roundtable, we asked folks, what else do you want to talk about? And so they gave us a whole bunch of options and we picked the options that were most commonly occurring there. So you don't have to have come to the first one to enjoy the second one, but we'll do more of these, and each session we'll explore 3 different questions. So the way it'll work is you'll pick an inquiry question to explore, and then I'll put you in a breakout room based on the inquiry question that you picked, and then you'll explore that inquiry question. So I'm going to go over these questions as I'm going over them, just be thinking about which one you want to explore today. All right. Inquiry question number 1 is equity, inclusion, and social justice. So a lot of folks wanted to know what could be done to be more culturally responsive, to serve more students who maybe aren't currently being served, and to create those safer, more affirming, and more inclusive spaces on our campus through peer education. So a lot of different directions you can go in if you choose this inquiry question, like what kind of professional learning is available, what's working well, maybe how we've diversified our peer educator applicant pools, what practices have worked, how do you know it's working, and what other possibilities are out there. So that's question number 1. Or you can choose inquiry question number 2, which is about online tools and resources. So a lot of folks wanted to know what are the online tools and resources out there that'll really help us get to the meaningful, engaging, connected, student-centered writing support, right? Less mechanical and more transformational, not transactional, the transformational stuff. What platforms have we been using? What's working? What are the programs, websites, softwares, social media that's working? What training has been successful in helping folks get more comfortable with this online format? And what else could we be doing next year? Or you can explore question number 3. This one is about peer educator training. So what training can we provide these peer educators to facilitate that meaningful, engaging, connected, and student-centered writing support? So what training are we doing now? Maybe it's tutor training, maybe it's online training, maybe it's both. Maybe it is culturally responsive training, right? All kinds of different stuff out there. And there's going to be intersectionality between the questions as well, right? Is there a different training that's needed now that we're purely online or in a COVID-19 environment? What do we still need? And is synchronous, asynchronous working? Kind of all that stuff goes into those questions. So what we'll ask you to do now is Mara's going to put that link back in the chat. And then you're going to go back to that collaborative document. And this time you're going to go to slide number 3. And then in slide number 3, you're going to do the same thing you did before. Click on every other bullet so you don't type over each other. And just put your name in column 1, column 2, or column 3 based on which inquiry group you want to explore today. So I'm going to give you about a minute and a half to just kind of put your name in one of these columns. Any questions on that? All right, take it away. Okay, and I think I don't see any more names going up there. So we'll go ahead and move into the next section where we do a quick reflection, and Chase is going to lead that as I continue to put you all in these cool rooms.
Yeah, hi. So, we're going to do another reflection. This one's going to be a little bit different, a little bit more focused now that we've been presented with the 3 different questions and you've chosen which inquiry question that you wanted to explore. So now that you've chosen that question and its corresponding topic, we're just going to take a couple of minutes to think, write, or type, and we're going to do this privately. We're not thinking, writing, and typing on a collaborative document. It's just, on your own, thinking about the following questions here. The first one, what successes have you had? Number 2, what do you hope to accomplish in the next year? And then number 3, what questions do you have? And these are designed to help jumpstart the conversation once we get placed in our breakout rooms. So let's take a couple minutes to do that.
All right. So next we're going to go into these discussion rooms. So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. I already have you set up. I think they're all good. If you find that you get into the room and everybody else has a different question than you, just go ahead and come up back out into the main room and I'll switch you around. I hope I did it right this time, but last time I messed it up a little bit. So if I mess it up, come on out and let me know. Each room has a note taker assigned. So all you'll need to do when you're in the rooms is designate a timekeeper. And then first, just give everybody a chance to talk. 1 to 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, name, role, college, and share the reflections that you just gave us. So tell us, what you wrote down, what your successes are, what your questions are. And then the rest of the time, we'll just engage in crosstalk. As you generate suggestions, successes, and questions, your team note taker, who's already been designated, will take notes on the slide that's been assigned to you, right? And then at the end, you'll just designate a speaker. And then when you return, each team is going to share out. So we'll give chances for each team, like 1 to 2 minutes for each team to share out. So as you can see, you've got the slides all ready to go here, and each room already has somebody assigned to it to take notes. Any questions before we go? All right, then we'll see you back here in about 22 minutes. If you're having glitches or if something funky is happening, you get kicked out. Here, I'll stop my video. If you get kicked out, that's fine. Just come on back, no problem, and we'll see you soon. All right. So if you want to call for help, we'll come in. And if not, we'll see you in 22 minutes. All right, and welcome back, everyone. All right, thank you so much for engaging that. I know it's never enough time, but our hope is that this will be the beginning of the conversation and not the end, right? So we have 11 minutes left in our session today before our first trolley stop. We'll hang out until 6:30 if we want to have a whole group debrief, but for those who need to leave at 6, we at least want to give a little flavor of what the other groups talked about. So we're just going to ask you to do a couple of things. First of all, you can download that collaborative set of Google Slides so you can see what other people said. And also there are some cool resources on the last slide. We're going to do a quick 1 to 2 minute share out with each group. And also, if you need to bail a little bit early, Mara's going to put a link to a short survey asking you about potential questions and topics for future Writing Center roundtables as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this so we can all see each other's faces. And let's start with group 1. So group 1, what did you talk about? What were your suggestions and what were your questions? I'll set my timer for 2 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Genesis. I'm a Writing Support Center faculty. So in our group, we were talking, our conversation really focused around hiring practices. We shared that we feel that our tutoring staff doesn't really reflect our student population at our institutions. I work at Pasadena City College, and our school is an HSI, a Hispanic Serving Institution, yet our student staff does not reflect that. So we were discussing different ways to increase outreach in order to reach a diverse population of tutors. One thing that Jeffrey White, who is in our group, suggested is looking at the last 2 years of hiring and then focusing on self-report ethnicity, racial data to compare against the student population. So just to see the correlation between those, and also potentially asking tutors, what made you want to decide to work here? We also discussed collaborating with career centers on campus to see if we can do informationals to discuss, what are the benefits of working at a writing center? What are you learning? What are you taking away from it? To really break down that stigma of what is a tutor. A tutor is not that perfect student. A tutor is someone who understands learning and connects with the student and can help that student find the confidence within themselves. And also just reaching out to different student groups with constituents from various backgrounds, such as like a Black Student Union, Black scholars, programs such as Fuente, Ujima. And those were just some of the practices that we discussed potentially doing. And we left with some questions. Does a 3-credit training course limit who is involved? Is a course a barrier for students of color to want to be a tutor? And then also, if it is, how do you sell the benefit of a tutor training course that is a class, so that way students of color would feel more so inclined to take it and not see it as a potential strain on their mental space or their financial ability.
Beautiful. Wow, such great ideas, great inquiry questions, and we can see how the intersectionality of these questions really surfaces, right? All of these questions affect one another. Thank you, Genesis. We really appreciate you. Let's move on to group 2. So set my timer for 2 minutes. Kind of what suggestions did you come up with and what questions came up?
Yeah, so we had a shy group, so I'm going to be presenting. I hope you don't mind. And so basically we talked about how to outreach to students. And so a lot of it had to do with collaboration with other student services. So career, transfer. And so I believe Ken was, it kind of happened organically. And so, with like the career, with a resume workshop, and then we kind of were able to roll in like transfer, and then different other departments were getting involved. And so also other ways to kind of reach out to different populations was networking with counselors and just talking with them. And then the other way too is just referrals. And I think the questions that came up with that were like how to do outreach in terms of like, what more can we do to kind of reach out to these students, especially because it's on an online environment. And then we also talked about in terms of like how we can be more inclusive in terms of like training is we ended up talking about books. And so how to be an anti-racist was one of the ones that was mentioned. And then another one was Zaretta Hammond's culturally responsive teaching on the brain. And so and just kind of using those books as ways to like bring about more awareness and whatnot. And then in terms of outreach, types of outreach, we ended up talking about, oh, that's awesome. Oh, wow. Hey, that's awesome. And so the other thing we talked about in terms of like, we ended up talking about platforms in terms of how we can outreach instead of just sending email blasts and, continuing to spam students. And so there were social media such as Instagram, I think one institution or one person at their institution was looking into texting students, but apparently there's quite a bit of logistics behind that. Canvas is another one. And yeah, I believe that's it. Oh, and then the other thing we talked about was in terms of like getting students to use our services, especially if they feel like for whatever reason that they shouldn't, can't, whatever. We were talking about that humanizing aspect. And so it's like I know like for my institution, like one of the events is it's like, what can we use, what kind of words can we use to kind of get students to be like, oh, I should go to that event. And then then they see me and then they're a little bit more like, oh, she's friendly, maybe I'll work with her. Right. Yeah, and so it's that humanizing aspect. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Ruth. Appreciate you. Appreciate the shout outs for those books. I just got my How to Be Anti-Racist the other day too, so thank you for that. And yes, culturally responsive teaching and the brain. Yes. So that's wonderful. Awesome. So now let's have team 3. I'm gonna set my timer for 2 minutes. Tell us about your takeaways and questions.
All right, so we were looking at like online platforms, and all the group members all came from very, very different perspectives and used their online stuff in very different ways to just great results. Let me share a few things that we came up with. At one of the colleges, tutor training is actually a 3-unit course, which is a nice way to make sure everyone shows up, right? There's another idea about having something like an online writing group, mics off, cameras off, just where students maybe can come in and write online, like over Zoom. Another member has one Canvas shell for all tutoring, and I have to say I was so jealous because at this college, the students are automatically added to the tutoring shell. I know.
So jelly.
So everybody, I'm so jelly. Everybody's already enrolled. So that's not our college. That's one hurdle we struggle with quite a bit, but that's a nice bonus for that college. Another member suggested something called WC Online, which is a tutoring scheduling software. But what's nice about that, it has built-in Zoom. So the transition to online was really easy for that school. Microsoft Teams was also mentioned. We talked a little bit about cameras on or off. Somebody suggested a really nice, just an easy fix to a Zoom session is using student names often to create intimacy. And we talked about different ways of doing paper drop-off. Some do it before a tutoring appointment, some do it through Canvas, others do it through Google Drive. And we had some questions, which was interesting. And the first was, how can we create a feeling of welcoming and warmth online? And I have to tell you, one of our group members, when we started the session, had beautiful piano music playing in the background. And it just made it so nice. It just changed the vibe. So I added that question to our little Google slide. How can we integrate music maybe into a, you know, I'm dreaming of a writing center platform where everybody just comes in and writes together, and that's my little fantasy.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Mara. Appreciate you. Great work. And it looks like we'll go over 2 minutes, if that's okay, because we don't want to get in the other teams. If you got to go. But I would love it if you just give us 4 more minutes to get through both teams. How about group 5? Hit it. Tell us about your takeaways and questions.
Okay, I was in group 5, and we talked about tutor training, and I think we had some overlap between things that we've tried in terms of tutors shadowing other tutors. Now virtually is a little bit more challenging. It's not, it has to be a little bit more contrived. But at my campus, we've experimented with having some tutors sit in on a Zoom session, you know, rather than just watching a recorded Zoom session. It seems beneficial. And then at another campus, they talked about embedded tutors having that extra support because they have also their instructor that they can talk to and learn from. And so that's been really beneficial. And then we got some great ideas about a Canvas shell from our facilitator. And that was a good discussion of just how to use a learning management system to do some tutor training when it's not a class. If it's not the 3-unit class, it's just like part of your training. And there's definitely a lot of benefits from that. And you can do a combination of synchronous work that can be recorded and posted and asynchronous work, which is a real benefit. And we talked a little bit about the crossover between like school and work. And that's like the only like little bit problematic thing about using the LMS is it's like it kind of looks like school when it's not school. But on the other hand, they are paid to do the activities. So that's another option. So we talked about that. And then that sort of led into a discussion of, you know, tutor work-life balance and keeping tutors from being too overwhelmed with too much training.
Yeah, great. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Nanda. Really appreciate that. We appreciate you. Appreciate your sharing. We have one more group to grow. Group 6, tell us about, oh, perfect. Group 6, tell us about your takeaways and questions.
Yeah, so one of the ideas we got, because we didn't have too much time to think of ideas, but we were bouncing around like our experiences with other things. And so I know Rob talked about how he did at his writing center, like the end of semester scavenger hunt via Zoom. And I think that's just like a very interactive and good way to get the students involved in something that's different than like just watching a screen all the time. He also talked about like an implemented weekly chat with the coordinators, which is kind of like you just talk. It's like a small mental health check-in, which is like very important, especially right now in this time with everything going on. Like, I think that that's essential. We also just like the previous group talked about how important the work-life balance is for tutees, like to remember that they are students, and given the circumstances right now too, like what can we do to ensure that they are getting like that their life is balanced. We had a couple questions. One of them was like, how can we connect better via Zoom? Like, yes, we're seeing each other and we're talking to each other, but it's not the same. It's not the same as being like with one another. And so like, what's one way that we can kind of like connect a little better? We talked about how we can decrease stress or yeah, how can we decrease stress for tutors, and how can we improve retention. We talked about maybe possible peer training for dealing with stress. We talked about different types of asynchronous training for tutors, and if there's any special training for embedded tutors, since it's like a little bit more of a different role. And that's it.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Michelle. And I love how you started off by saying we didn't generate that many ideas, and then proceeded to give us a list of 30 brilliant ideas that y'all came up with. Appreciate you. Thank you all so much. I do know that some of you need to leave. This is our trolley stop off. We're going to continue, but if you need to go now, please do continue to join us for other events. We'll be back here on Friday, December 11th at 3 p.m. Grossmont College is going to come and talk about how they do something called narrative tutoring. So we'd love to have you there. Also on the 3CSN website. And also on the last slide of that collaborative document that we created, there's a whole big list of communities and organizations that assist Writing Center professionals. So please do check those out as well. And if you just have any questions, you can always email me. It's just my first name, Crystal, at 3csn.org. So if you got to go now, we appreciate you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention and ideas. For those of you who want to stick around, I'm going to stop the recording.